Harvard students aren't smarter than you. Same brain, same neurons, same limits, but they get better results. Faster promotions, deeper understanding. Why? Because they ask better questions. Not more questions, better ones. And that changes everything. Most people think learning is about answers. Wrong. Learning is about questions. And Harvard students have a system for it. I'm about to show you exactly what they do. And by the end of this, you'll never ask questions the same way again. Chapter 1. The question gap. Most people ask safe questions. What's the definition? Can you explain that again? Is this on the test? Useless. You're not learning. You're collecting surface-level facts. Harvard students don't do that. They attack the idea. They ask, what assumption is this built on? What breaks if this is wrong? What's the opposite perspective? See the difference? Average people seek clarity. Elite students seek weakness. A study from Harvard Business School found that high-performing students asked more follow-up questions, not just initial ones. They dig deeper. Because here's the problem, though. Your brain hates effort. It wants easy answers. That's why you ask shallow questions. Quick, comfortable, done. But shallow questions produce shallow thinking. And shallow thinking makes you average. Cal Newport calls this cognitive depth. The deeper you go, the stronger the neural connections. Harvard students force depth through questioning. Example, average student. What is inflation? Harvard student, what causes inflation structurally? How does it impact different income groups? What happens if inflation becomes deflation? Same topic, completely different brain activity. One memorizes, the other understands. And understanding is what sticks. But here's the thing, even good questions aren't enough. You can ask smart questions and still learn slowly. That's where the second advantage comes in. Chapter 2, Interrogation Mode. Most people treat learning like reading a book. Passive, quiet, comfortable, wrong. Harvard students treat learning like an interrogation. Aggressive, constant, relentless. They don't read information, they attack it. Robert Bjork, a cognitive psychologist, calls this desirable difficulty. When learning feels harder, it becomes stronger. Harvard classrooms are built on this. Cold calling, case method, no hiding. You walk into class unprepared, you get exposed. Professor calls your name. What would you do? No notes, no script, no safety. You think, you struggle, you answer. And that struggle? That's the learning. Research from Make It Stick shows that active recall beats passive review every time. Reading feels productive. It's not. Testing yourself feels uncomfortable. That's why it works. Harvard students simulate this constantly. Even alone, they close the book. They ask themselves, explain this out loud. If I had to teach this, how would I do it? If this is wrong, why? They turn studying into a conversation, a fight, not a lecture. And here's the other thing. They want to be wrong. Yeah, you heard that right. Most people avoid mistakes. Harvard students chase them. Because mistakes trigger correction. When you get something wrong, your brain releases neurochemicals. It flags the error. Fix this. Remember this. That's why failure sticks. Rudiger and Karpik found that students who tested themselves retained 50% more than those who reread. 50%, same time, double retention. But here's the problem, though. You can interrogate information all day. You can ask brutal questions and still forget everything next week. That's where the third advantage comes in. Chapter 3, Question Layering. Most people ask one question. Get one answer, move on. That's why they forget. Harvard students layer questions. They stack them, one idea, 5 angles, 10 perspectives. They don't stop at understanding. They expand it. Example, topic, artificial intelligence. Average question, what is AI? Done. Harvard student, what defines intelligence in machines? How does AI differ from human cognition? What are the ethical risks? What industries will it disrupt first? What happens if regulation fails? Same topic, now it's a network, not a fact. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus showed that memory strengthens when information is connected across contexts. More connections equals stronger recall. Your brain isn't a storage device. It's a web, and questions create the web. The more connections you build, the harder it is to forget. But here's the thing. Most people stop too early. They think understanding equals mastery. Wrong. Understanding is just the beginning. Harvard students go one step further. They apply pressure. Chapter 4, Real-World Pressure. Most people learn in isolation. Books, notes, screens, no pressure, no stakes, no consequence. Harvard students simulate reality. Case studies, debates, presentations. They don't just learn ideas. They defend them, and that changes everything. Because pressure changes how your brain encodes information. When stakes feel real, your brain pays attention. It says, this matters, and keep this. A study from the University of Chicago showed that students under moderate stress performed better in recall tasks than relaxed students. Not panic, pressure, controlled difficulty. That's the sweet spot. Harvard students live in that zone. They argue, they challenge each other, they get questioned, constantly. And that forces clarity. If you can't defend an idea under pressure, you don't understand it. Simple. But here's the problem, though. Most people never train this. They study quietly, alone. No friction, no resistance. So when real situations come, they freeze. Because they never practiced thinking under pressure. Harvard students do, every day. Mid-video trigger. At this point, you're starting to see it. Better questions equals deeper thinking. Deeper thinking equals faster learning. But if you don't train this consistently, you'll forget it. Hit subscribe before you forget. We build smarter brains here. Chapter 5. The meta question. Now here's the final level, the one that separates Harvard students from everyone else. They question the question itself. Yeah, most people never do this. They accept the frame. They stay inside it. Harvard students break it. Example. Instead of asking, how do I solve this problem? They ask, why is this the problem? Who defined it this way? What if the problem is wrong? This is called second-order thinking. Ray Dalio talks about this. Thinking about thinking, not just solving, but redefining. And this is where unfair advantage comes from, because most people are playing the game. Harvard students are rewriting the rules. Example, average person. How do I get a better job? Harvard student, why do jobs exist this way? What alternatives are there? Can I bypass the system entirely? Now you're not just improving, you're escaping the system. That's power. And that starts with one thing, better questions. But here's the thing though, even if you master questioning, even if you think deeper than everyone around you, there's still one problem. You might be asking questions about the wrong things, and that's worse than not asking at all, because now you're efficient at being wrong. Most people waste time learning useless information. They get better at thinking, but about things that don't matter. That's why Harvard students don't just ask better questions. They choose better targets. They focus on the 20% that drives 80% of results. And if you don't know how to do that, you're still behind. So now you know. It's not intelligence, it's not talent. It's not resources, it's questions. Better questions, deeper questions, relentless questions. That's the unfair advantage. But if you're still learning random things, if you're still chasing everything instead of what matters, then you're wasting it. That's why I made this video breaking down exactly how to find the crucial 20%. And learn anything so fast it's almost unfair. Watch it next.